Another aspect which went missing in the entire curriculum design is the broader understanding of people. Now, one thing, like if we when we started our discussion, we spoke about design of experience versus one specialized segment, which is interface design or design for a digital screen. Then you further divide the design for a desktop or a design for a mobile phone or a design for a retail kiosk. These are specialized, very focused sector level problems. The challenge happened when we isolated the problem of interaction design only within the digital realm. Now, design itself is broad. We design for, by and large, human beings. We design for society. We then, within a society segment, sometimes we consider for a user group. User group could be a family. Then we come down to a particular area. The challenge happens there's a lot of psychology which is involved, and the psychological aspect and various other facets are not covered in most of these beautiful courses. Very rarely you come across, in fact, architecture is one such discipline in which you'll have semiotics as one of the electives, then you have sociology, then you have building construction, then you have electrical, you have plumbing, you taught mathematics, you taught physics, you're taught some bit of planning, you're taught even documentation, writing your thesis. It's a more holistic course. But when you look at interaction design, there are no studies or deep level studies on people. There are no deep level studies on society. Neurology is completely missing from interaction design discipline. While while all the time we are reacting or acting as per a certain amount of order. So one has to sit down and think on occasion that if we are designing for people, one has to consider all aspects and then possibly understand the finer nuances of whether it's a want or a ask or a desire, right? And then come from that framework whether my design solution need to solve a particular desire. That is where we do the selling. Where I have to solve a problem is a want area. It could be a ticket booking, it could be a checkout at a hospital, it could be want can sometimes be also a movie ticket booking, right? You are low, you want your family to enjoy, and you quickly want to get your ticket done. At least the times, the pre-corona time I'm referring, where one got worried and a good movie is coming up. If you book it too close to Friday, then you'll only get the front row seats, and you want some distance over there, right? So there is more of a want than a desire because the panic button has a kind of on. These studies are not there at the moment. And when we don't look at society and we don't look at final problems from these lenses, we are unable to design.
I think this is very well said, Vijay. The way you completely described the curriculums of designers, how it has been so far, and what all things to opt for designers. Complete curriculum to get designed very well, so that they relate to the actual problem statements which are really faced by the users, and with respect to the business, they need to understand the same as well. Um, Vijay, my question is the second question, which I think it's more of related to the physical products, not to the digital products. Let's take a tap, or door handle, or some latches. Design the ages took the principles of interaction design into the consideration. So, do you think that something like ancient interaction design principles does exist in current world, in current scenario, where businesses do they consider ancient interaction design, or they come up with some new theories and they do it with their own sort of understanding?
That's again connected partly to the academia segment where, as an interaction designer, I'm not taught the holistic concept or the larger purview connected around the interaction design discipline. Beautiful examples that you have talked about. So let's consider only, let's say, a tab design, right? Uh, Humans interact with tab, and it's a good example. Let's take two examples. Let's take a remote control, which could be a physical remote control, which you have for the TV. It's okay. And the other is a tab. So in the case of remote control, the remote control is not the means and the end to every entity. The remote control is there to control something. So the effect of that controlling will be visible somewhere else. Right? So you control, you press a button here now, but that AC will get triggered somewhere else, or the TV will get triggered somewhere else. Right? It's just a local interface I'm looking at. But this interface also needs to have a lot of feedback, and that localization of that tool has to be thought through it. Cut to a situation where I've got a tab. I'm pressing a tab here. Of course, I mean, you've got levers in which there are large
Yeah.
societies who press a lever and the tank will fill on the 15th or the 30th floor. But in most conditions, I've got a problem and a solution happening within a confined area, which is the same zone. Both problems are different in a larger context. When interaction designers they start understanding the physical interactions with the real world, their digital solutions become a little more realistic. They don't only think in a certain screen size. So the challenge really happens when you've got a template set which is given to you, whether it's from Android or from iOS or let's say from the flat world Windows. All your components, your controllers are predefined. Your problem statement is also there to some extent, right? And you're only trying to reinvent the wheel within a certain context. That is where, if your input is defined, there are predictable outputs you will be having. And hence, you'll find there is no innovation really happening in a login screen. Checkouts are pretty much the same. Your add to the trolley is same or add to the cart is same is perpetually basically only there's this 10% marginal changes that you are actually going through and nobody's really thinking, am I missing something? Can something new be done about it? These aspects they start appearing in your psychology if you start taking cue cards, which we call as parallel analysis sometimes, or getting inspired from some other world problem when we look at these ones. So let's go back to TAP again. So TAP teaches you at some extent that what are the human level possibilities I have. What are the gestures can I do with a tap? So this is where it gets really interesting. So and I'm slightly digressing and I'll come back to the main point. So years ago there was a plane crash because those years to ascend a plane or descend a plane, even you had these levers or the joysticks, whatever you call that, right? A pilot will give you the real term. So those years, what happened used to happen was the planes when it had to take off, you had to press down, right? To take off, you have to press down, and to descend, you had to pull back. But intuitively, if you look at some other areas, like let's say in driving, if you have to steer left, you will do the action of steering left. When you have to steer right, you will do the action of steering right. But to go up, you possibly pull. Yes. And to go down, you push. Because that's an intuitive biological brain given to us. But this was counterintuitive. So when the two planes actually came together, right, and both had to follow a different path, their instinctive reaction chipped in, and when one pilot had to go down, right, he had to actually pull up, but he wanted intuitively he wanted to pull up, so he pulled the lever and his plane went down. Later years, these micro interactions which happened, of course, at that time were mapped to the subtle brain patterns because there you don't have time of contemplative thinking of 2 seconds or 3 seconds. You will do instinctive reactions. Instinctive. It's like my life is going high. You'll never say my life is going high, right? You always say my life is going high, or I had a bit of a low, right? Did I do it consciously? Answer is no. It's kind of locked inside, deep inside my brain pattern. So there are many aspects which traditional product design, right, used to incorporate as part of the regular product interface, which our ancient people used to follow. We have not looked at those examples. We started looking at my rectangular screen and I started doing the basic interaction design. If I just go take a step back, understand those patterns, and possibly think how those biological patterns can be brought in, the only problem we have now is we bring it at a pseudo level. Look at the toggle buttons we have. The toggle buttons came from the real world toggle controllers, switch on and off, right? We still replicate that. The new generation haven't seen those buttons and controllers a lot, right? Our calling like button or that icon we have is still the age-old phone, right? Who has that phone anyways, right? So a bit of a pseudoness has come in, but there's a lot which is still available to go back and possibly ponder over how it can be done.
Vijay, I have a thought over here when you mentioned about talking on the background of knowledge and the individual rules which is coming from an ancient data. So where does the autonomous plays a role? Like all these vehicles, like upcoming vehicles like Tesla and all this. These are self-driven vehicle.
Yeah.
Like sooner or later we'll have self-driven aeroplanes and all.
Right.
So how? I know I'm shifting
That's
the
right.
talk,
Yeah.
from design to technology, but also there would be required robots need to understand the designs, right?
Yeah.
So how you look at that stuff?
It's a complex answer. Replicating the human brain is near to impossible even for machines for even next 50 years, right? While we do anything which has got sequential modeling, and of course it's for an AI specialist to answer, anything which has got sequential step-based calculated modeling can be modeled, right? And we now have situations in which we have got computers beating real humans in the game of chess and in very complex games as well, because they are all certain calculated moves. There are risk analysis which happen over there. But the larger criteria appears that all this artificial thing was still there, right? To a certain extent where it was non-risky. Let's consider very age-old tap again. I'm going back to tap. You remember a time when we had in schools, you used to lift a metal body, it used to release the water. The moment you leave it, and it will lock the water. Is this artificial intelligence or not? The answer is yes, right? Your alarm clock in which you used to wind, and that winding used to exactly trigger at 6 a.m. in the morning. There is no person available, but still somebody is waking you up. That is also artificial intelligence. So all that parameter was there. Now comes the question: how much of human emotions and that calculated moral values will have to be decided, right? And all of these will, at some later stage, will be decided by a machine as well. But we still have a long way to go, provided what kind of a data we feed through that system, right? And again, this goes to indicator, performance indicators, and key performance indicators. What would you like for these indicators to do for you, right? Let's go back to hospital as an example, right? At a critical point, something dropped down, right? A certain hospital suddenly received 100 COVID patients and oxygen supply was going down because all these patients needed oxygen. Now, what kind of a trigger can be sent? Do we wait for people to do manual ordering for oxygen cylinders, or it has to be an auto trigger, right? Here, do you need a moral question? Answer is no. You don't need a moral question. Do you need an explicit permission from the, let's say, the patient's family whether this patient need to be treated? Answer is no over there. So few things can be made autonomous, right? Will a blood bank? So here now is a situation. If you know, in the case of COVID, you had plasma, this therapy which is given to certain serious patients, and people who had gone through COVID in 30 days time period, they can donate a plasma, right, as per a blood group. This is a complete space for digital intervention, where I happen to go through, let's say somebody has happened to go through COVID, somebody is AB positive, and the moment the person's phone number is registered, and you may have come across these cases where a long list is circulated in WhatsApp with the patient's phone number, that these are available for plasma donation. All you require is an intel data over there, right? Whether the person has surpassed 35 days time period or not. Second, whether the person has already donated or not. The person is there already available in Mumbai or not. These are the data points I'm looking at. All you require is an AI cooking up this and serving a data as per the requirement of a particular hospital. This is hot zoning, just like you have in Ola and Uber, that 4 patients or 50 patients around in a certain region of Mumbai are expected to go down in oxygen, and they may require plasma therapy because it's the 4th day they are going down in oxygen.
This is very well said, Vijay. I think the way the touch points are described, I think, the AI, as you mentioned. But what is your comment on sooner or later AI will replace interaction design, which are done by people, or maybe 10 years down, 20 years down, we can have robots doing interaction design, or still this will require a human brain to do that?
See, we already have robots. So, Japan years ago, I don't remember which agency it was, Leo Burnett or Ogilvy, that has to be scraped through from the history. They came out where they fed a lot of ad patterns, which are print ad. Now, I'm not talking about video ads or movie ads, I'm talking about print ads. They were fed into the system. And the robot, through visual mapping, they learned, through photo recognition and through emotion mapping, they learned that this ad evokes this kind of an exposure, or this ad is meant for that kind of an entity. Now, these were mapped with meta tags. The moment you backfeed a meta tag into a system that I want a quirky looking burger ad, it will map a burger, a quirky, all these keywords, the meta tags, go back to the system, do the photo analysis, decide, and then draw a pattern directly onto a sheet. So it's artificial intelligence over there.
Right.
So at some stage, all many of these creative aspects will of course be decided by the computer itself. That is for the humans and the subsequent organizations to decide what is the new value addition they will provide to the business.
But how do bots will relate to the real motion of design?
Yeah.
Sometimes, being a human, we look at something and we think, wow,
Hmm.
to the design. Right? I might take an example of a Taj Mahal as a design,
Yeah.
and when you see that, it comes out as a wow.
Yeah.
Do you think the bots in the future will be able to do this, such sort of designs? Like, is this possible?
See, if you backfeed, again, if you allow the machine to start with a latent database or the latent memory, which is the default memory, and then one is the, of course, the experiential memory, which the systems learn as they go through different user interfaces or the user cycles, right? Let's say we create all that component inside, right? As a starting point, you can very well ask for that. I am looking at a 13 room, let's say, fortress, right? Which has these kind of patterns. I need one large gateway. The moment I'm saying that, your mind is already constructing that, and a system can also, construct that. It's very much possible. Now comes the question, which is a larger question to us, that under those circumstances, what will the creative fraternity do, right? That is the time, and the answer of this comes from music. Music is one of the most beautiful industries, right? The moment you hear a tune, and you've heard that before, and there are 2 or 3 tunes which are intermixed from 2 or 3 songs, your mind is already pre-exposed to those tunes. Your mind will go back to those tunes and it will hit a trigger. I have heard this before.
Yes.
But still, music directors innovate, right? For years we are creating music, but still every album which is successful, it's not a replica of some other album. It's something unique in that, which you have not heard before. If that creativity is alive, that means there is some bit of neural intermixing which is happening in the brain inside, right? That is where the new model of innovation will arrive. So partly brushing upon, let's say, only looking at a tab, my old latch, right? Right, and mixing it, let's say, with a payment gateway. Whether the solution is available today or not is irrespective, right? But you embark upon a journey which is towards the unknown, and that is where the model of innovation